Hello, everybody. I have a question for you. Who's your best seller? And it's an interesting question because if I ask that and when I ask that in calls with prospective customers or existing customers, I hear almost exactly the same answer every single time. They open up their CRM and they say, oh, it's Sally. She was at 180% of plan last year. Currently 96% to plan, and we're only 3 months into the year. Great. Why does that make her your best? Maybe top performing, maybe highest on the leaderboard, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is your best. And here's the huge problem that companies make in the later stages of their fiscal year. For those of us on calendar fiscals, October, November, and December, really, because we're asking ourselves really simple questions, right? Well, where do we need to go next year? Well, we need to grow by 30%. Great. We need to reduce or we need to increase our net dollar retention. We need to reduce churn. We need to whatever. There's 8 million things you have to do. But at the end of the day, it pops out and says, let's pick one of these goals. Okay, well, if we want to grow net new revenue by 20%, okay, no problem. And let's say we have SDRs, AEs, and SAs or SEs, solution architects, solution engineers, whatever you may call them. We have three roles that are responsible for net new revenue, which means we need to take into account these people's ability to do their jobs. Because what I think not enough companies understand is when we say we need to grow X%, it means whatever we did this prior year, we've got to be better. We've got to do more. We've got to sell more. We've got to be sharper. We've got to raise our ASP. We've got to shorten our sales cycles. All these things go into how we plan for the following year. But the number one thing that customers, an area that customers really struggle with, that companies just out there struggle with, is asking themselves is, can our people actually do this? How many times have we rolled out comp plans to an individual saying, hey, you've got $1 million quota this year? And few sales leaders out there or executives out there, when you hand this piece of paper over, you know there's no way in hell this person is hitting that number. If that's the case for you, then why give them a comp plan? What we need to be focused on is understanding our people. What are their abilities relative to the goals that we're trying to obtain, trying to achieve? Well, if I have a team that's consistently performing at 70% to plan, and I need that plan to go up by a significant percentage next year, I already know that from what I'm seeing, I don't have the people. That's got to be my first thought. So, okay, well, what's a way for me to understand what the power of my people can actually do, what their current threshold really is? This helps managers and leaders understand how to properly answer the question of how much quota do I over assign? Typically, it's 20 to 30%. Well, how do you know that number's right? It's a guess. I see it all over the place. Ask any of your communities. You'll hear basically the same number, 20% to 30%. There's no logic in that. It's just somebody used it once at their company, and that's kind of what it means, or what people use now. But let's be real about this. If we want to understand the extent to which our people that we've hired and hopefully trained well and have brought into our culture and ecosystem, if we want to understand what their potential is, then there's only one way to find that out. And that's by measuring what their potential is. So here's how you do it. Let's say you want to grow your revenue by 30% next year. And let's say you have your nice little stages, your prospecting, your discovery, your demo, your solutioning, your negotiation, your close. We have to assess our people on their ability, let's say net new revenue, on their ability to master the conversations and customer interactions that they're going to need to have to get to their revenue numbers. If this is not something you're doing today, you are costing your company probably millions of dollars. Here's what you need to do. You need to take a conversation, let's say discovery, and you need to boil down that conversation for your company into every single one of its parts. How do you open the call? What are the sections you need to hit? How do you close the call? What are you going to teach? What are your industry insights? What are your core messages? What are your differentiators? What are your proof elements? When you have all of those things, you document that and you say, okay, now what skills go into each of these pieces? Well, the open, what goes into that? The core part of a discovery, what goes into that? How do we close meetings well? You have to have this framework and diagrammed out. And then you go and assess your people. You look through Gong, You bring them in one-on-one and you watch them in action and you give them a score relative to your baseline, relative to what good looks like. And what you'll find is you're going to have people that might not be crushing the leaderboard, but can do these things really well. And you'll find that some of your best people can't do these things to save their lives. They just happen to be in a good patch. But the only way that you can understand how you're going to grow your company is to understand the delta that your people still have to that they still have to give, the amount of talent and revenue that is still locked inside your walls that you haven't unlocked through proper training. I will tell you, most companies have 20 to 30% of their revenue locked inside their people that they just haven't shown them how to get. It's also very interesting that 20 to 30% is the average number that people overassign quota. My suggestion is at the end of the year, even in Q1 here, assess your people. If you don't know how, reach out. I'll share a guide with you. But this is the number one key to understanding if you can actually hit the goals that you have for yourself this year. Hope you enjoyed this. Peace out, my friends.